Загарно.
Я знаю.
Такий день.
We have some.
Okay, good. Okay.
Але тут навіть добре, бо на дворі є
Мені дуже шкода.
We have some.
We have sound now. All right.
Excellent.
I'm not going to be redoing my introductions, so we are just going to let Lesya begin, and the bios for introductions are available on the event description online. So please go ahead and get started.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Can you hear me? Yeah, mic is working. Доброго дня, пані і панове. It's a huge honor to be here. I'm really humbled because MTSH, Shevchenko Society, was actually the first organization that supported our film when we were on Maidan. And I'm eternally grateful for it, that you believed in us. And 10 years after, here's a film.
For you and the shop.
I'm also very honored to be here at the panel with such amazing established people. I remember when I was a student, I was reading Tamara Hundorova's books, and she was my goddess. She was this revolutionary of postmodernism in Ukraine. And then she was the first person who read my dissertation about Yuri Andrukhovich. And I'm very grateful for the revolution that you started in Ukraine in literary criticism. And we have Christine, thank you so much in your interest in Ukraine and devoting your work. And with Olha, we were in the screening right after the revolution where we showed our very rough footage from Maidan. And there were very provocative questions from the audience, I remember. And Olha was so brave and strong answering them. I was really impressed. And Vitaly, thank you so much for organizing all this. I also remember how we met like 20 years ago in Columbia University, and I was also presenting the work about Andrukhovich. And today we are here to talk about Maidan. We are here also to talk about the film A Rising Fury. It's a true labor of love because we started this project in 2013. And at that point, I just thought it will be a film about revolution. We started with few people. Serhiy Mikhalchuk, our established cinematographer, was photographing, and we were exploring the images of Maidan. Then Ruslan Batitsky joined, our co-director, who is now in Ukraine. And we also have Norwegian producer, Jonathan Lee, and TJ Collins, an American producer, joined us in 2016. So initially the idea was to make a feature film about Revolution of Dignity. I myself participated in Granite Revolution. We called it Revolution of Children, although officially it's Student Revolution. And I was so impressed at that time because, you know, the image of revolutions, it's something violent, it's something bloody, but actually it was this feeling that history is unfolding in front of your eyes, and it's a movement to resurrect Ukrainian culture. It's a renaissance of spirit, and it's a way to tell the world that Ukraine wants to be independent. And at that time, I wasn't a filmmaker. I was studying literature. It was my first year, and I just got to university and right away was involved in the revolution. So I really wanted to create some work of art about it. And when Orange Revolution started, unfortunately, I couldn't fly to Ukraine. I was making my film here about Ukrainian and Georgian trying to escape from Russian imperialists. So when in 2013 we already felt that something is going to happen, I flew to Kyiv and we gathered the crew and we started filming with Ruslan Batitsky and other people. And in the end of the revolution, we felt that it's a victory, but very bitter victory. And our character Pavlov, who is displayed here, he joined Aidar battalion. So he volunteered to go to the front line. And we decided to follow him with our film crew because we felt that this is not the end. And at that time, we couldn't even imagine that it will take us 10 years of a long journey. So now in our film, not only we talk about this war as an almost 10-year war, because in the West, many people think that it started on February 24th. But we also actually start our story in 2007. So we know that Russia started preparing this war much earlier, but in our film, we start proving it, that it happened in 2007 for sure. I just want to say something about our character, Pavlov. Today we learned that he was badly injured. He was on the front line and he stepped on a mine and his hand is badly injured and he has burned skin and they were evacuating him for hours and hours, almost 30 hours. Yesterday we talked very shortly before the film and he said, God bless you. He didn't tell me what happened. Today he told me more. He's like, I just wanted you to have a good premiere. That's the people we're making films about. It's Pavlov who's behind us. He's very brave and we're trying to help him now. So this was a very, very long journey for us, 10 years. And actually, currently, we continue working on this project. We went 3 times to Ukraine already after full-scale invasion and filming more, following up with what happened in Bucha, because I was born and raised in Kiev, but actually during Maidan revolution, we moved to Bucha. And so it's also a very personal story for me. So we are following up with our characters, we keep filming, because they both our main characters, Ivan and Pavel, are still fighting, and other characters are very active. Like for example, Ivan Lenyo, who is a frontman of Cossack System, they played almost 200 concerts since the full-scale invasion started. They sometimes play 3 concerts per week, 3, 4. I don't know how they are doing. Honestly, I have no idea where do they take energy. But they don't just inspire people, they gather money to support Ukrainian army. So the topic that we are discussing today, it's how art can inform people, how art can inspire people, how it can tell the story, but also how art could be a beginning of a conversation, how the art could become an inspiration for fundraisers, for talking with decision makers. And it's very important now to keep going when the world is starting to get tired from Ukraine. We should constantly look for new ways to engage American people, people from other countries, and keep creating the work of art and work of culture. Few other words I wanted to say that, and the DJ will continue, that we traveled to 4 continents with this film, including Australia. And the perception, it was very interesting to learn about how much people in different countries know, depending on their reaction. It almost felt that we showed different films in different countries. It's almost how text is changing depending on the audience. For example, in Poland, they were terrified. And the questions were, do you think that Polish society is as infiltrated as Ukrainian? And I said, I don't know the measure, but I would probably say yes. Then in Sweden, the director of Swedish Film Institute said, I wish we would start supporting Ukrainian projects earlier. I wish we could educate our people earlier. In Norway, we had a gentleman from Finland coming, hugging us and say, thank you for fighting for us. In Australia, also we had amazing reception. So in Greece, though, it was very difficult. In Greece, we felt people are totally in a different mood, that they are not ready to watch the war film or talk about it. So we were learning that in each country you need to work differently. You have to have a different approach because each country has some misconceptions about Ukraine. It has a certain amount of knowledge about Ukraine. Even in America, when we started working with TJ, the first thing he said, your cut is beautiful and poetic and very long. It was 3 hours. He said, first of all, you have to cut it and you have to show the map of Ukraine. And our film was the cinema verite style, and I didn't know how to incorporate maps and this like explanations of what Ukraine is, but I hope we found a way to do it. And this is very important for people who didn't learn about post-Soviet Union situation, and they don't understand the situations in Ukraine or Georgia or Chechnya or Armenia. We need to educate them in artistic form and cultural form. So about the film, a few words about our release. The film is playing for the whole week until, including next Thursday. We show it at 1 p.m., 4 p.m., 6:15, and 9 p.m. Please come and please tell your friends and colleagues, especially American colleagues. We really want them to come and see our film. And we have different events coming. We have a Columbia University Club, Yuri Shevchuk presenting the film on Monday. We have UCCA, our main sponsor, presenting film tomorrow. We have Timothy Snyder coming on a Wednesday. We have a charity dinner on Thursday to raise money for generators for Ukraine. And yesterday we also had a party after party where a great jazzman, Fima Chupakin, was playing, and it was a fundraiser for warm clothing for Ukraine as well. So our idea is not just to show the film, but put this community together. People meet each other, maybe come up with new ideas, to brainstorm, do exactly what we did on Maidan. And that's why we devoted our film to Maidan. We were saying, if you have two people with the same idea, you can start the project. You can make a film, you can write a book, you can start a new NGO, you can do something very important to Ukraine, and we really encourage everybody to do that. And I'm passing the mic to our producer, DJ Collins.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a real honor to be here at the Shevchenko Society. I produced this film, and I got involved back in 2016. I didn't know very much about Ukraine at that time. I'm American. This was something that was interesting to me at the time. Ruslan and Lesya, they showed me some of the early material back in 2016, which included the revolution. And I was really shocked to see tanks and firefights and the revolution and this intimate material. And I just wanted to get behind the project and help in any way that I could. And so I reached out to as many contacts that I had here in America. We brought the project to the IFP, which was the Independent Film Project at the time. Now it's the Gotham. And we met with decision makers, we met with agents, and we connected with people that would help us along the way. But it was a real struggle to make this film. Because emotionally it's very challenging, but financially it's challenging as well. And so we really worked and tried to find as many resources to make it as possible. And thankfully, our Norwegian partners, they were really helpful when we needed it the most. But this was a real labor of love for so many years. And it's incredibly challenging because it's a story that's unfinished. It's unfolding each and every day. You know that the people that you care about, who are pretty much family, they're risking their lives. And so you have to carry this burden with you as well, but also thinking different ways of how we can tell the story, how we can tell it in the most effective way. And so it's incredibly challenging. It's a story that's unfinished. And so for us, we were very fortunate and glad to be able to present it and to complete it. With the full-scale invasion, presented numerous challenges, mostly because we were very close to finishing this film. We thinking to release the film in the summer of 2022, but because of the full-scale invasion, we really had to advance our timeline to quickly get it out, because we recorded 500 hours of material over nearly 10 years. And so we felt a need and responsibility to alert the world as quickly as possible with the stories, the heartbreaking stories that are within this film, so that people would understand a little bit more of the struggles that Ukrainians are dealing with. And so we finished it with the help of Ukrainian Americans, and we presented the film at the Tribeca Film Festival. We had a wonderful world premiere at Lincoln Center, and since then, as Lesya says, it's traveled to many countries, and so we're very happy and fortunate to have done that. And last night we had our theatrical premiere, so it's just really wonderful.
I just want to add to it. I want to thank all our supporters of this theatrical release. It's Ukrainian Congress Committee of America. It's Ukrainian National Women's League of America. It's Ukrainian American Business and Professional Association, Shevchenko Society, thank you so much, the Brighter Ukraine Foundation, and Leleka Foundation. And it's just amazing how people respond when you write to them and you share your ideas and how enthusiastic they are. And I'm proud to say that we've been also showing film to fundraise for Ukraine. For example, in Richfield, the film helped to gather $50,000 to help to build shelters in Western Ukraine for refugees. We were fundraising for the Leleka Foundation for medical backpacks, for the Brighter Ukraine, who is now raising money for warm clothes for the army, for Doctors Without Borders, for Dignitas and others. So we're trying to work with different organizations, so not only fundraise for them, but also to talk about them, so to inform people that these organizations exist and what they're doing. And I'm very proud to pass the mic to our wonderful guests.
Well, first of all, kudos to Lesya and TJ, amazing film. And I think they are a representation of the art force, and hopefully I actually count myself in that force, that despite all the disinformation, confusion, informational confusion, I think Ukrainian filmmakers and artists had very clear vision where we should be. And we carried that vision with our projects no matter what and no matter the cost. And the cost, I'm not only talking about financial, because each of the Ukrainian independent artists, all of us had to put our finances first. Because sometimes the country, the society was not ready to support, but also emotional, toll and emotional cost. Because to be emerged for 10 years, for example, with the Rising Fury, to be emerged for 10 years with the same project and re-traumatizing yourself every time, it's, only that is award worthy and it's priceless. And I also can see it on in my team. Petro Didula, who was the director of photography for Women of Maidan, he's still continuing filming, and he has now a project called Small Stories of the Big War. And we also tried with Women of Maidan to raise awareness, to do as many fundraising events as possible, and sometimes also forgetting to take care of ourselves. So I'm using this to remind you, Lesya, TJ, and everybody who is an artist, Kazakh System, Rashchubai, Zhadan, all of these artists who are being like showing their art, doing the films, doing music, doing actually art shows, to take care of themselves. Because I know it from my personal again experience, seeing what was happening to our team, it hits you, earlier or later, this emotional weight that you are carrying on your shoulders, and you have to transform that. You have to find a different venue for the other people's trauma that you are carrying. And in that case, I would share what I did with my basically re-evaluating everything that I got when filming Women of Maidan, and seeing also what my women were going through with the war. So now next week I have a book release, and it's called Legends of Water, and it's basically how water helps a woman to nurture herself and heal her wounds. And on that, I have much more to say, but I will, maybe we can continue the conversation. I will pass my mic, and thank you very much, and Antisha, for inviting us all here.
Do you want to start? Yeah, okay, yeah. Thank you for inviting me, and it's my pleasure and honor to be here and to meet with Lesya and to celebrate this release of these movies. And I remember very well our first meeting, and I was one of reviewer of her dissertation, and I'm very glad that Lesya found her way in this world, and that she does not have lost her connection to Ukraine, and also her engagement in contemporary Ukrainian and also very traumatic events that we have during this new millennium. It's very important for me. So thank you, and I wish you all the best. Actually, it seems to me that this movie and this topic of Euromaidan as a beginning is a very significant, symbolic, and also political, social, and cultural event. Actually, it's opened a new stage, a new field, I would say, in development of Ukrainian nation and Ukrainian culture as well. And in some way, when we look, for instance, for the beginning of this century, and try to analyze, for instance, the Orange Maidan, Orange Revolution, and Euromaidan, you can say that in some way Orange Maidan was like a continuation, or maybe the end of previous epoch, or epoch of 1920s, because mostly this was in a kind of carnivalization and something like the revival of Ukrainian energy. But Euromaidan, the Maidan, the Revolution of Dignity, has a different character. To me, it's kind of a revolution. It's kind of idea that formed future of Ukraine as well. And now we see how this event are connected. For me, for instance, it's very important that I work at the Institute of Literature, and his address is Грушевский 4. So it's just outside of our building that we have such a barricade, and this fire and fighting as well. And Pravi sector. The fighter from Pravi sector, they stay, they live in our office room. So among our books and notes and materials of our research. So so this is very significant for me when the war, the 5G, the political idea and cultural idea, and also interconnect. Oh, I'm sorry. And what is also important, it seems to me that when we try to analyze the special character of revolution and dignity, it seems to me that it also had a kind of a new event that has a kind of performative character that unite different ideas, social. It's a kind of education and creation of a new Ukrainian society, where the people from different backgrounds, social, religious, gender, they united together in Maidan. They lived together, they stayed together, they became a new society. This is a kind of creation of new society. But it is also a very important cultural event as well. And it seems to me, without culture, without slogans and picture and writing and telling about this event, we can imagine Maidan or Euromaidan as a political event. And what is also important that a new form of literature, of cultural experience were also born during the Maidan. For instance, this interest to documenting this event, to witnessing this event, and to prepare to be part of, to create a future history, and also this short movies, Babylon, for instance. It's also a very I would call it maybe very innovative form of creating, of participating, of cultural experience that started to develop at that time. And it seems to me, and the other aspect is also very important. It's a process of volunteering. It's in different aspects as well, and cultural. So it's many people who started and who created this new genre of activity, of cultural activity during the Maidan. They later became a leader of building a new cultural politics in Ukraine, like Vladimir Yermolenko or Lesya Ostrovska-Luta, who is the director of Kiev, of Arsenal, Party Arsenal in Kiev. So so it seems to me, and many, for instance, many Ukrainian authors like Artem Chekh or Artem Chapai or the other, they went to the as Artem Chekh called it, ground zero. So they went to fight just in 2013. So, and now they also in the front line. So it seems to me it's very important that we have a kind of continuation in kind of creation in new Ukraine, and that also very important in contemporary situation and war in Ukraine.
Thank you. And last but not least, but I would like to thank both of you for taking the most difficult route in the sense of following two individuals throughout 10 years of life. And I think for researchers, that's something as a research tool, and also as a way of bringing not only an object to life, it also allows the opportunity for those that are not in the front lines to be able to realize, sort of the struggles and sort of the challenges of what it's like to be an activist in these particular contexts. Myself, I've done research of activism of different generations, from the time we talk about the Granite Revolution influencing the new, at the time, 2004, 2005 revolution activists into preparing them for, to prepare against, struggle, political struggle, and to be able to sustain, themselves, through 3 weeks of, creating 10 cities on the Maidan, and to be able to represent a new generation that were post-Soviet, so to speak, not having, this connection, although their grandparents may have transferred some of the trauma, to them, but having this aspiration of wanting to be a new generation with a future, an economic, a stable, future. At the time when I was doing field work in 2004, 2005, I'd asked many of the activists who were 25, at the time in Kiev and Lviv and also throughout Ukraine, what their thoughts were if there were another type of conflict were to arise, what they would do. And all of them without doubt said, although, I'm not, a lifelong, activist, but I will come back, from my civic life and, found it to be as a civic duty to defend, their country. So at the time, so even then, it was cognizant that they were a fragile society, a fragile state, but there was still yet a commitment from 25 years old at the time to want to defend their ideals in terms of a stable country. And like the film, I followed these activists 10 years later during this the year of Maidan to see what had become of them. Because they were idealistic, they were 25 and wanting to change the culture. They had a new president that was more democratic leading, Shevchenko, and they had a lot of ideals. 10 years later, it was a lot of disillusionment. Some of them were feeling that change wasn't happening quick enough. And at this time, many of them had been in their 30s and had founded families and found themselves supporting a newer generation of university students that were not as, it wasn't an organized, it was more of a decentralized movement that was happening during Euromaidan, as it demonstrated in this film. The first part of it was very peaceful with students supporting a European direction. So it kind of had echo to what, the 2004 activists were, had hoped for. And yet they were able to transfer this kind of knowledge, into this new generation. But what I found, different in terms of the filmmaking, in terms of Pablo's story, is that's sort of where this picks up in terms of the second generation, where in Kiev, they had the kind of the direction of having former activists kind of share, kind of their technologies and organizing themselves, whereas those that were in the regions were less connected and more susceptible, to, in his case, to being exactly into nets and Luhansk and finding kind of a group setting because they weren't really feeling a civic connection. Whereas those that had been participating in these previous had kind of a civic duty and they kind of had a connection to country. Whereas in these other areas, they were kind of isolationists and they were kind of susceptible to, in his case, deception, right? And also it had consequences in terms of infiltration of ideas and susceptibility to disinformation, in these certain areas that were happening at this time. So I found that really interesting that despite, his humble background, he was able to kind of separate himself from, propaganda that was being, spread, because at the time these were areas that were voting, party regions. After the Orange Revolution, these were areas that had a lot of propaganda coming in, from, the Russian area. So not only were the young people susceptible to it, as we see here in terms of militarization and these cells that were being, developed in these breakaway regions, but it also had consequences on, those that could somehow get a consciousness of wanting to separate themselves in a way that was different from the mass. Because as you see in the film, many of them did not, have that same political consciousness. Whereas, in Western Central Ukraine, there might have been, civic activities or class or something that gave them kind of an idea of nation and civicness. Whereas it was through war, I think they found national identity. So it was kind of a different, experience. And as we see the war develop, we see, Odessa and others, writers and culture writers decide Ukrainian as their primary mother, want to change their language of writing and producing cultural knowledge. So I think in some ways it's almost like a second independence, movement that happened in 2022, in which brought a lot of consciousness, and even those that were occupied, a desire to be free and to form a new type of nation. So I think here you see kind of like the bubblings of this recognition that, that their propaganda that was told was not quite resonant with this population that hadn't chosen a national direction. I think I'll stop here for the conversation. Sure.
You touched upon a very interesting subject, and actually it's really related to what we are talking about. So our character, he's from Donetsk, and many of his close friends became separatists. But he chose to go to Maidan and then join Ukrainian side. And you mentioned that some of people from Luhansk and Donetsk found their patriotism through the war, but with Pavlo, actually, it was earlier. And people ask me why he chose Ukrainian side, whether most of his friends didn't. And my answer is because he knew he was very interested in history. His father was a history teacher. He was reading a lot of history books, and this is a great, I think, example of how people learn to think independently when they have knowledge, when they have true knowledge about history. And this is what we are, people who represent culture, should do in the West to educate people about what's really happening in Ukraine. And sometimes they ask me in the audience, what's the big deal? Why Ukrainians are dying for their freedom? And we are saying, because we are free people, and we were free people for centuries and centuries and centuries, long before Russian Empire became, unfortunately, part of our life. But thank you so much. You have such an interesting observation as an American. It's very, very valuable for us.
If I may say something, because this is from my experience talking about that, like how do you know which side to choose? And in 2004, I packed so I was living here, and when a friend of mine, Mariana Bujarin, actually a scientist now a researcher at Harvard, she told me that there is a revolution, and we felt it's not coming from outside. It comes something within you. I had 2 kids. She had 2 kids. Our kids mine was six months old and 2 years old. I packed my kids. She packed hers. We went to the revolution because we couldn't be here. We had to be with the people. Now I arrived in Kyiv. I have, the kids in little, carriage. I go on Maidan, and my husband actually said, "You're crazy. They're going to stumble over our kids. You're going to kill our kids." I come there, and this is what I see, and I think this is what was in 2004, and that's why all of us found ourselves in 2013. You come in with 2 little kids. There's a million of people. They see you're coming with kids, and the sea is going separates and gives you away. And I am talking about this now. It's so many years past, but if there was another Maidan, I would be there again because of that way was separated. There was this, what Putin later would say, that we were paid by the West, because he, in his imagination, couldn't get what is that invisible hand that brings people to one circle on Maidan and makes them to part the way when there is people with kids are coming through. This is not just the history, it's coming from within. It's like a big mystery of belonging, of your land calling, your, some kind of DNA talking. And when you open your heart, when it's right to be on the right side. Sometimes your mind can come in and say, well, listen, this is dangerous, and trying to talk you out of it. Or maybe, mind finds, but if you listen to your heart, you will always be on the right side. Thank you.
Maybe we should show our.
Yes, indeed, my proposal is that right now we watch a trailer of the film, and then we will continue the discussion.
We have
There were 10 minutes.
Is
Can we also show them like Women of Maidan trailers, or should we show trailer and then 10 minutes, or which one?
Trailer, the 10 minutes, and then.
Okay, excellent.
if we have to?
Yes, yes.
No, of course we have that.
Please do.
Dim the lights.
Could you please help us to dim the lights?
People of Ukraine, this is your moment.
Перше, я важко побачила, ну да, образ реально колоритний. Це секс не то слово.
Зараз Путін хоче відновити Російську імперію.
Стрельби, крики, вибухи. Це як війна на винищення, і ми знали, що людей треба вивозити. Ну я з Донецька, то я ж і кажу, що я просто знаю, з ким воюю. Ми почали роботу по вивозу штатських.
Все нормально. Все нормально.
Веду групу і стали
And now we will show you an episode of the film. It's 10 minutes. It's an episode.
Okay, I just want to say that we will now have a second, slightly longer clip from the film, which is 10 minutes long.
Ми дійсно вважали, що це мирний протест, що ми дійсно просто боремося за євроінтеграцію. Перше, я важко побачила, ну да, його реально колоритний. Він тоді єдиний був, по-перше, в якомусь такому мілітарному зброї. Він був один єдиний з військовим рюкзаком в американських піксельних штанях, в берцах. Ну, коротше, образ, розумієш, вибущий шаблон. Секс не дозволить. Зразу майже, як ми познайомились, Пашка почав розповідати, коли він розповідав про свої ці страйкбольні всі радості, то Ігор, там, мій друг, мій найкращий друг, це звучало постійно. Він був дійсно його друг по життю, не дивлячись, що що він його старший на 20 років. І у кожного свої авторитети якісь випадають. От у Пашки, виходить, така людина якраз авторитетна, яка трапилась йому в житті, це саме Ігор.
Игорь, да, заснул по стрельбанику. Позывной Беркут был.
Пашка взагалі більше тяготів, скажімо так, до цих хлопців, які охороняли периметр Майдана. Він ходив вже тоді, вже відчувалось в повітрі, що щось буде або якісь оточення, або напад на Майдан. Дивлюсь, Майдан оточений, повністю оточений, причому в такому кільці. І вже оточені не тільки ВВшники і починається така колона Беркута, вже рухатись в бік якраз всередину цього кільця. Але нас просто грубо брутально розігнали.
Ні, насправді. Там я питався розмовляти, побили, не побили, вона мені казала спочатку, що ні, все нормально, потім вона вже мені сказала, що таки получила по спині. Безсилля тоді було перше, таке сильне життя. Безсилля, мені здалося, що нічого не міг зробити, коли я відходив з людьми. Я воювати прийшов охороняти, а тут таке. А я єдине, що витягував людей максимально. І Світлана підійшла, каже, обніми мене.
Як би коли сказала, я не спав, за тобою ходив. Хай буде, це неймовірно, те, що тут зараз говорять. Мурашки інші.
Це настільки відчувалось. От просто настільки відчувалось, що аж іскри сипались.
створювати казки. У кожного має бути по 3 коктейля Молотова, і у нас будуть, і нам не потрібні щити, нам потрібні коктейлі Молотова, пережити казки однострої, і це має бути мирний протест. От це так і має бути. А якщо якась бидова влада захоче знов нас розогнати, то ми ж бурнем в направлении человека, которого мы подозреваем в преступлении против человечества, 200 коктейлей, и мириться никогда не происходит. Революція по типу польської, чеської, європейської революції, які дали які мають величезне КПД, вони існували в симбіозі силового блоку і творчої інтелігенції. І преси, і творчої інтелігенції. Це симбіоз, який зможе дати контролюючі повноваження Майдану.
People of Ukraine, this is your moment. The free world is with you. America is with you. I am with you.
Після того, як побили хлопців і дівчат, фактично влада оголосила війну Симонову. І всі мають усвідомити, що зараз всі знаходяться на війні.
Багато хто себе відчував дійсно фізично беззахисним, і причому в серйозній небезпеці, тому що коли тебе б'ють правоохоронні органи твоєї ж країни, які мають тебе захищати, то до кого тобі ще звертати? Мене не зайшов в Беркут і хотіли ув'язнити, вийшло, що я вирвалася. От, коли повернулася додому, я проснулася вдома від того, що мої діти закрились дитячі і співали молитву за Україну, гімн за Україну. От. І це все було так. І зараз я теж хочу, щоб вони жили в нормальній країні, щоб там десь років 10-20 не пройшло, щоб вони не виросли і не опинились в такій самій ситуації, в яких я опинилася.
Зараз Путін хоче відновити Російську імперію. Вже не один раз українці відступали. Наприклад, у 18-му році розійшлися по домам, коли вирішувалось питання Української Народної Республіки, а вони стали на борню проти російських окупантів. І в результаті потім через декілька років був голодомор, були величезні втрати від репресій і від всього іншого. Тому зараз нам також немає куди відступати, через те, що якщо ми відступимо, якщо ми не зламаємо зараз цей режим, який встановлюється, то наші діти будуть рабами в цій країні, рабами чиновників, рабами кримінальників, які дорвалися до влади. От і все.
Коли почалася взагалі, народилась, скажімо так, на Майдані сама ідея.
Oh, actually, we will watch one more film trailer and then we'll resume the discussion. We'll watch also a trailer of the film by Olha Onyshko, Women of Maidan. So
3 minutes.
it's a 3-minute short trailer, and then we'll have our brief Q&A, and then we'll be able to continue with the reception upstairs.
And since we are waiting, it's just, again, you could see from Lesya's film, and this is what you will see in Women of Maidan, and I touched on it a little bit, the invisible hand, that when people get together and they're behind a right idea, they have a sense what to do and how to organize themselves. And that's what that principle of, when I was filming it, I saw that this is a principle for a new society. And that's what Russia doesn't have it right now, not official Russia. And that was a big difference. And this is what we found on Maidan. And I think it was so threatening for the Kremlin regime, because not just Russia, all the stance, all that regime, that oligarchy was coming down. If that power, that power of people's solidarity for the right idea, if it would won. And it actually did win on Maidan, and that's why we have a war right now. Yeah, that's fine.
No.
It's fine. It's fine. Let's just have this, and search for that also search for that light that I saw on Maidan brought me to write about Queen Olga of Ukraine. But that's a different story. We are ready, right?
Як це бути? Дівчинку з косичкою, ну я не знаю просто, як це можна. Я не уявляла такого взагалі.
Мами за дітей! Мами за дітей!
Ми вас захистимо. І для цього ми вийшли, щоб вас лишити.
Чай, майданівський, підходьте, гарячий!
Я дуже хочу, щоб в мене лишилася надія.
Часто хлопці казали, що так хочеться втекти, а дивимось на вас і розуміємо, що якщо ви стоїте, ніхто не може.
Yes, a round of applause for both film crews. Yes, thank you so much. So if we can have the lights back, and if we can have the panelists back at the table, and given that we had some technical difficulties, we're going to have a very short formal Q&A, and I will start with the first question to both film crew teams. As you're sitting down, please start thinking about it. Lesya mentioned that you had over 500 hours of footage. And we know that, yes, this, both the Revolution of Dignity and then the war were incredibly extensively documented, including video documentation, live streaming, documentary filmmakers working. This makes, to me, a really impossible choice. How do you actually select, how do you shape then the narrative arc, the dramaturgy of your film? Tell a little bit about the process of how you were making the selection, of how you were putting the work together. I think this will be really fascinating, both for the audience here in the room and for those who are watching us on YouTube.
Thank you for this question. People ask what was the most challenging in making this film, and we had some incredible challenges filming it and financing it and surviving through all this. But writing and editing, for me personally, was one of the biggest challenge. People ask, what is a writing of documentary? And again, it's a very interesting question. When you have so many hours of footage and so many amazing characters, you cannot just make a film with a timeline. This happens, this happens, this happens, this happens. You need to find a point of view. You have to decide which character you're following. And when history is unfolding itself, you don't know what will happen tomorrow. So who do you follow? We were very lucky that Pavlo and Svetlana opened up their lives to us, that Ivan Lenyo and other musicians opened their lives to us, and Vadim Vasilchuk, who is now a deputy in City Hall and doing so much for Kyiv, also opened up to us. So we are so grateful to our characters. And the editing was really painful. Like we probably had about 20 versions, and the very first version was just Maidan. Then in 2015, Ruslan came to the United States. We were working in Mary State University. Another interesting example, it's American University just decided to give us 2 months in the summer to edit in their editing room. Then we only worked on the war. And if some of you who saw the film remember the scene with refugees, for example, which is now 3 minutes in the film, my first editing version of this scene was 1 hour, 20 minutes, just one scene. It could be filmed by itself, the evacuation process. So Ruslan was working on fight scenes, I was working on refugee scenes, so then we had edits just about the war. So we had almost like 2 films, and we had to decide which direction we are going. Then when TJ got on the board, we were working on a version, we were focusing on hybrid war, shadow war. We were talking about how some hidden techniques were used during the revolution and through the war. So we were connecting revolution and war by this theme, the hybrid war. And this cut was very long. We worked in Kyiv together, me, Ruslan, and TJ, we were editing that. And in 2019, we had that version. And then we showed it to some of my American colleagues, and they were completely confused. They just could not understand what's going on. Just the idea that there is some hidden war, informational war, cyber war, cultural war, religious war, economical war, military hybrid war, was so hard to understand for them. Like even some film funds that we applied, they thought that it's a civil war. We just could not, we were trying to prove to them that it's Russian invasion, and it was very hard to prove. So this way we arrived to the point, so in 2019, we decided to start working with American editor. And so we worked, Jamie and Arabic Kelly. We decided that we choose, first of all, we will have this big epic layer of history, like 10-year history, it's one layer. Then another layer will be Svetlana and Pavlo love story. And the third layer will be a betrayal story, the story of Pavlo's mentor and the storyline of subversion of young Ukrainian boys in the Donetsk region. So we decided that we will focus on one strategy of hidden hybrid war and how it led from Maidan till the full-scale invasion. So I could talk for ages about it, but this was basically our way of editing. And so it's editing, but it's also writing. You're constantly writing and rewriting, writing and rewriting. We were waiting for victory. We wanted the ending of the film to be Ukrainian victory. And this is actually a reason why right now we are thinking and we are working on the idea to make a docu-series, because we have absolutely amazing material. We have whole storylines, amazing characters which are not even in the film. For example, we have Sergei Nigayan. And it was so powerful that unfortunately we had to cut it because the story was in the middle of the film. And after that story, it was almost impossible to keep watching. So it was a very painful decision. But we have the story, we have a connection with his family and many other stories. And most importantly, we really want to capture Ukrainian victory, and we want to show much more developed story of the last decade of a contemporary. We want to create a cinematic contemporary history of Ukraine of last decade.
Yeah, it was incredibly challenging, and I was operating more of as a creative producer in this capacity to really sift through all of the years of material and the information and the events, because there's just so much of it, and to present it within an hour and 20 minutes, it's a task that's just incredible. And so I was really coming from a standpoint of Americans that know nothing about Ukraine. What is it that they need to understand? Geographically, where is it on the map? So we approached it in this way as well. And this kind of documentary, and there's different types of documentaries. This verite documentary, it's extremely challenging because you can't simply just put an interview of some expert. You know, this is not that kind of documentary. It's verite documentary. It has to be, you know, it's very intimate, kind of fly on the wall type of approach. And so we had to present a lot of information, a lot of events in such a short amount of time, in kind of bursts about Yanukovych quickly, and then move on, because to have information about the revolution and the war and that transition, it's just overwhelming information. And so we had to really balance how much information with what material, and it was extremely difficult. Another thing that I think should be mentioned is the story. Oftentimes, you're filming, and things don't always just happen. Sometimes you can film for weeks and nothing happens at all. And so you don't know if there's a story there. And so to spend years saying, is there a story there? It wasn't until 2018 that we began learning about the story that's presented in the film. Pablo began sharing it after trusting us after 4 years of filming with him, that we learned what was happening in the east of Ukraine, and what was, you know, subverting these boys in this whole like hybrid technique. We just felt this is something the world needs to understand, and we need to understand it for ourselves. And he's trying to understand it himself so that he can tell us what was taking place. And so we felt it was incredibly important for the storyline to be in the film and highlight this storyline. So it was an incredible task to go through all of this material and capture what was most important, and then put it in the film.
So Women of Maidan is not a film about one hero. It's a film about it. It's about a group of heroes, and they are women. I think it was, in our case, it was very challenging not to follow particular people. And actually, as a matter of fact, Petro Didula, the director of photography, we have 4 terabytes of material. 4 terabytes of material. So he actually made 40 short films, and it's Women of Maidan project in Ukrainian, about the small, so like small little 5 minutes long films about women on particular women that are in the film. The film is 66 minutes. So why did it? It's much harder to do a film about, or it has different challenges to do a film about the revolution, than to follow 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 people. Why did we do that? So in 3 Stories of Galicia, it's a Ukrainian, Polish, and Jewish view of what was happening on the territory of Galicia during the Second World War, when Ukraine, Ukraine, but particularly Galiciana, Galicia, was between 2 evils. Stalin, Soviet Union, and Hitler's Germany. So, and those two evils were changing hands, and the local population was triggered many times into the conflicts. Why? Divide and power, right? But so when we were making this film, and we were following also Ukrainian women during the time that worked for UPA network, and we realized not only misinformation, but also when I was working under the KGB released materials during that time, it was 2007, I realized that there was a war against women. That actually during the Soviet Union, when you put, nobody talks about it, but when you put it like, the puzzles together, it looks like there were 2 very smart techniques. One was, of course, get all the nationalities of the big Soviet Union into conflict with each other. Second was against dignity of men, unless they were Russian. And third, it was against women. And I got so fascinated, and at that time, it was 2012, I actually started to follow what was going on with kidnapping and with the human trafficking, and why there was such a massive human trafficking of women. And I chose 3 stories that will be actually, because 2012, it's a preparation for the first time Soccer World Cup is going to be on the territory of Ukraine and Poland. And this is on the surface, and there is a huge thing about the prostitution, about the human trafficking, and I started to see this is and the violence against women. And as you remember, the actually Maidan started not even with the Maidan, but with the woman who was going. She was 28 year old. She was going from a bartender, going home after in the evening, and she's attacked by 2 policemen. They rape her. She escapes. They do not manage to not kill her. She escapes naked, and that got people in that village so upset that they go to the street. And when I saw that, actually, I wanted to follow that, but then something was going on. So this is June. We have this big. Then we have this first big outcoming to the streets, and then in November, when I'm making pancakes for my kids, and my mom calls and she says that what happened? They dragged scout girls on the street last night by their hair. And when I heard that, I knew this is starting. This is going to be attack not just on the women, but this will be a big attack on all democracy in Ukraine. So I just bought a ticket and I was on my way to Ukraine to film it, called Petro Didula, and we started to film on Monday. But to say that wherever in that time of the misinformation, and I believe it now, when women go on the street to support their kids, that's when the truth is. And I hope that was the message of Maidan. We followed the women.
Again, thank you so much. We unfortunately pressed for time, so I suggest that we give a round of applause to our amazing panel. Please go watch A Rising Fury in the theaters if you are in the greater New York City area. And please follow. I'm sure there will be more opportunities of this film coming to other places. And the same with the work of Olha Onyshko and her wonderful film Women of Maidan. And please, those of you who are from the Ukrainian community, tell your American friends and neighbors about the importance of what Ukraine is fighting for. And those of you who are our American and global friends of not Ukrainian background, thank you for paying attention. Thank you for supporting Ukraine in its fight for justice and democracy and human dignity for all the good people on this planet. Thank you so much. I invite everyone present here upstairs for the reception. Дякую дуже всім. Thank you so much. Please stay tuned to new events at Shevchenko Scientific Society. Follow our site, our page on Facebook, and get in touch with us to get on our email list. Дякую дуже всім за увагу. Слава Україні! To be continued.